This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
Some trigger warnings before we start the episode. There are descriptions of abuse, sexual assault, and suicide attempts within this episode. Some elements may be distressing. Listener discretion is advised. And if you need support either during or after listening to the episode, there are resources in the show notes. I'm Georgia, and welcome to Finding Hope, the podcast that finds the good in the midst of the bad. Each episode, we meet someone who's had a bit of a hard time, but has found hope and healing along the way. And hopefully, they inspire you to embrace the good in your world too. Episode 34. Mel Baker. Part 1 of 4. Mel Baker is the kind of person that's hard to describe in just a few words, or even a few sentences. She'd had experiences enough for 20 lifetimes by the time she was old enough to drive a car. Mel has been through worse pain, hurt, and abuse than some could ever imagine. But that is not what defines her. What defines her is what she did afterwards. Each and every time the world let her down, she dusted herself off and got back up again. More than that, she learned not only to walk, but to fly. Fair warning, you're in for a long ride. This episode is one of 4 that will be released over a series of 4 weeks. I will repeat, some of it is really hard listening. Mel has been through so much, but you'll continue to be amazed by Mel's strength and, more importantly, the unwavering goodness of God. Let's meet her.
I am someone who will give so much of myself and I forget about my own self sometimes. I am quite sensitive in my personality, but I have this other streak that of the venture side. So I want to go out and have all the fun and experience and adventure, but I also want to have those deep conversations, and I just have this enormous love for people and for nature, and I love going out into nature and watching the animals play, and that's my downtime. I love communing with and connecting and integrating, but I love research as well. So I love everything but maintenance.
I love that. Mel, look, already I've read a little bit about your story. You've had such an interesting, such a filled life. I think your story is so important to share, even the hard bits. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah, I grew up in a middle-class family, and it was like a family that had lived life before I was born. So my parents were 40 and my brother and sister are 9, 11 years older than me. And so I was always told I was a mistake. And I still don't even know who my birth father is. I don't know if it's the person who grew me up. And when I was born, I was abandoned by my mum. And because she basically said, I've already grown up these 2, I want my life now. And then I was left in the hands of her husband. So I struggle to call him dad because I don't feel like he represents that word. And at first he was loving, really loving, and always cuddled me and I felt like a princess in the early years, and he would take me to work, and he owned a menswear store, and would go and have that playtime in the back, and I would always before school, be like before I started school, like 3, 4, I'll be there. And then around 4 years old, everything changed, and he started to sexually abuse me privately, and Mum was hardly ever there, so it was always when she was away overseas or somewhere else doing camps for teenagers, and so we were always there for others but not for me. And because my brother and sister were so much older, they were hardly ever home either, so it was a sort of a vacant house with him and I in it. And then time I was 7, he invited his business partners around, and they would pass me around and abuse me. It went on for a couple of years. And then that one of them was a scout leader, and he did that then when I was at Brownies, thinking I could get away from, anytime I could go into places like that, I could go away from the house. That was a good thing. I did anything to run away, to get away from the house, but I will always be found. It was like he was always a step ahead of me. But all through that, I actually learnt amazing tools. I learnt how to be invisible, how to not be found, and I learnt how to analyse everything in my head so that I would be able to try to get in front of the perpetrators, and that came as good tools for later on. So it was a really hard time. And then at school, I was always in trouble, and because I was bored. I'm quite intelligent, so I was like so bored with primary school, so I was just acted up all the time, and nobody ever, I always wanted people to ask me the right questions about, a direct question. I needed direct questions, and no one ever asked me the right questions or the direct questions, even teachers, and it's like nobody was there to save me, so I inwardly imploded. My brother walked in on us when I was 11, and then someone knew, but then he got kicked out of the house and then wasn't ever allowed to return. So my brother I always looked as my protector, and suddenly he was no longer there, and I knew that I could never tell anyone, because the people who will ever know will be hurt by him. That's what I believed. And then it demonstrated that when he got kicked out and he was found. I thought, oh, thank goodness this will end now. It never happened in the house again after that, but he did do a vicious assault in Lord Howe Island when I was 12, and that was the last time. And then he just turned violent. So the time I was 15, he put a gun to my head. When I came home once late and he was drunk, he used to drink every day from 11 o'clock in the morning all the way through the day and night. He got his pistol out from his drawer, which I knew existed, and the bullets were in it. And he put it to my head, and I heard the click going over. And I remember that click even today, when you turn that gun on. And I was shouting at him, and the only thing I could do was knock him out. He was a big man. I put a blanket over him and let him sleep off. I took the gun and the bullets out and hid it in the cupboard nearby and put it in layers so he wouldn't find it. And then I went to my bedroom and put a little bell on the door so I know if he would come in. After that incident, I started a job he wouldn't let me finish school, so this was while I was still in year 10. This happened when I was 15, and he pulled the funding out of the school, so I had to finish at the end of year 10 regardless of what I wanted. And I even wanted to go to where Turramurra High and all the where my friends were, but he wouldn't let me even do that. And so I decided, oh, well, quicker I get independence, the better. So I went and to 16, I started working for a graphic arts apprenticeship in a printing company. And I was really enjoying that. I finally found like something that I could really love, and I love creativity and I love art, until someone at work who was married sexually assaulted me.
The assaults continued for some time, until one day Mel didn't come into work. She had sent her abuser a letter, claiming that what he'd done to her made her want to die. Mel reassured me when she told me this, that this didn't particularly mean she was suicidal. She was just describing her emotions at the time. However, Mel's abuser went to management, claiming that she was suicidal, which was the reason that she was missing work. It's almost impossible to fathom. But instead of calling Mel or communicating with her at all, her management called Mel's father. And by the time she came home that day, her father had kicked her out of the house. And the very next day, Mel was fired. How the system failed Mel so many times in such a short succession is baffling to me. But here she was, 16 years old, jobless and homeless, left to surf on friends' couches, and eventually released to the harsh streets of inner city Sydney.
I found a little secure place because I like corners, because when you're gone through trauma, you like those corner places. And I found this little gap in the fence of down by the rocks under the harbour bridge. There was all the place where when they built it, they left chemical waste and metals and everything there. And so I found a mattress and I got it into this little fence, and so I had shelter. It was it was shelter from rain, not from the dirt and the waste and all the things that are around. The night was always, I never wanted to get to the night. It was as much as I could walk around, get drunk and not go back under the bridge was the best scenario. And I never wanted, because of my personality of I'm someone who could never hurt somebody else, that I could never steal from anyone. I could never hurt them like a lot of homeless other people may steal or take things. And in the 80s, there was no one there to help in those times like now. There was not really any hostels around. And so I knew how to play pool and I knew how to act really well. So I was a pool shark in a pub and I acted as if I had no idea what to do. Could walk into a pub and they would think I'm 21, like I just looked old as a 16-year-old. And I don't think by then I was ever frightened, because I had so much anger by then in my life. I'd held on my emotions so much when I was young, and by then I was just like so angry with the world. And I was really, all that sort of helped me survive on the street in many ways. But it was also not only the pool sharking, I sort of like got them free drinks and free drugs. I've got money that I won, $20 a game. So that sort of helped me keep on living. But those tools that I learnt as a child came in really handy. So that invisibility that I talked about. That was amazing because I could walk into a hotel lobby and walk into those toilets and showers at the bottom in the ground floor, and nobody will know that I've done that. And I've gone to the toilet, have a shower, and I could also watch things during the day on the street and notice things, and some of the horrific crimes that I've noticed in King's Cross. There's one that I've never even talked about, and I have released that in my book recently, and it was that underworld criminal stuff that you see of corrupt police and other things in the Cross. And I'd seen too much, and someone had spiked my drink and I didn't know, and so I lost all my consciousness, and all my analysis of how to get out of situations was gone. And I ended up getting a 7-centimetre knife wound across my stomach for it, and woke up in the park near the fountain on King's Cross. No idea what happened. And it's taken me 30 years to remember that. Other homeless friends that you meet who's died in my arms of heroin overdoses, stabbings. I saw old drunks that were stabbed and I'd have to hide, and I couldn't go and help because it would be my life next. You always seem to be on the run. You couldn't trust anybody. Trust and love and faith. There was nothing that I could catch on to. But I always hoped that one day I would never be in this situation. I hoped that one day something will happen that will pull me out. And that's all I could grab onto every day. A couple of weeks before my 17th birthday, I just lost all that hope. It was about up to my 5th, 6th month that I'm been homeless. I didn't know, just gone through Christmas, didn't know how I could keep on going like this. And I lost all hope, and a few times I tried to commit suicide, but every single time something amazing would happen. One time I was down a dead-end street in the middle of the night. No one was around. Like the city end around Liverpool Street. No one's around at that time in the mid-80s, because nobody really lived in the city back then. I had a knife to my stomach and I was about to put it in, and then suddenly a male stood right in front of me, just was there. And he had the most crystal clear eyes that you could ever see. And it was the first time that I felt someone look deep into my eyes, actually respected who I was. And even though I wanted to reach death so much, when I looked into his eyes, I felt like I needed to stand a little bit taller. I felt I needed to measure up to where he was. And I felt life. Even though I wanted death so much, I felt life. And then as soon as I felt that life, suddenly he was gone. I was like, where's that person gone? And I ran up the end of the street and I looked all around, and it's like there was nobody there. And I was like, I think that was an angel or something. And it was my first experience of a heavenly spiritual moment in my life, the first ever. It held me.
Throughout everything, Mel had always been an optimistic person, and the image of the angel had given her something else to hold on to. The day before her 17th birthday, Mel decided to return home. In her words, to see if anything had changed. She thought maybe her dad would have had a change of heart or even wish her a happy birthday.
I went home and Mum wasn't there as usual, and my dad was standing in the kitchen and making his lunch, and he didn't even turn and face me. He didn't see how bad a condition I was in. Like, I was pretty bordering on anorexia by then. Had the most tattered, rotten clothes on. My hair was like a mess and dirty. And I had, holes in my shoes. And he just stared at the tiles and spoke to them and said, "What are you doing here? Like, your mother isn't here." And then was scared of me. He actually packed all his lunch up, didn't finish, didn't even come over to the fridge to put anything away, and raced out of there to his study. And that just made me so angry, thinking nothing's changed. So I've got nothing. I've got absolutely no one that I know that could help me right now. And so I grabbed a few things, said goodbye to my room, and then on the way out, I saw this tiny little letter that was sitting on the hall table as I was going out, and it had my name on it. And I went, "Oh, I've got a letter." So I kind of folded it up and put it in my back pocket because I was just so annoyed. I needed to get out of there. And I hitched a ride back into the city, and then I sat on the botanical gardens under the big fig tree, and it was bordering on sunset. And I didn't see anything like, what a sunset. I love sunsets. I didn't see any of that. All I could think of is, it's time to go. And I felt relief in me, that pressure off life at that point. And then I thought, oh, wait a second, I got that letter. I want to hear, that's from Liz. I want to know what Liz is saying before I leave this world. Got out the letter and noticed it was written 3 months before. And she was in America. She's a lady who went to the Anglican church there my mum had been going to. And I met her a few times, and I was considered as a friend, but I hadn't seen her for many years. And she was over in America helping 16, 17-year-olds with drug and alcohol and homelessness, which was really ironic. But it wasn't about her. The letter was actually written to me. And the letter was telling me to hold on to hope, to know that she loves me, to know that there's others out there, and that you will find the support you need. And she's looking forward to the day that she gets home and that she can see me again. That made me cry. It's the first time I've probably cried for years and years and years. And having read that, again, I felt life. And again, I felt, okay, one person says they love me. Maybe there's 2. Maybe there's 3. Maybe there's more out there than I know. I just have to find that. I don't know what love means. I've never experienced it. I don't know how to find it. But I know that it's something important. And she's also telling me that God loves me. And maybe that was related to what I just experienced 2 weeks ago. So this is my second spiritual moment. I hear of this God. So I thought, okay, I can do this. And I actually got a job a few days later. And I saw an advertisement in the paper of another graphic artist job in the city, and it was actually just near the place where I saw the angel. And that gave me then shelter every night, because I could climb back in through the toilets and in that same alley. and that lasted 3 months. And again, I was another place I was sexually assaulted at. and he set me up on a drug deal, and it was a horrible ending to a good situation. But it also forced me to come to an option after I got fired from that job because of the same reasons. And it gave me a place to go, okay, I can go back on the street and I don't think I'll survive. I'll either end up in jail or I'll die from someone else's hands. I know that I wouldn't go back into suicide because I had felt that life and love now. I had something to hold on to hope, but I don't think I'll survive on the street. And I was about to come into winter. Or I could go home, I could get off these drugs and alcohol stuff that I've been taking and get my life in order and find my next step. And so I thought both options stunk, but I've got to go home. Even if I barricade myself away from him and do what I can, this is what I got to do.
So that's exactly what Mel did. She had to go through drug and alcohol withdrawals alone, in her room, with no support. But, as always, she did it. And 2 weeks later, she was starting to feel a little bit human again.
I got through the end of the 2 weeks, and then I started to sit up a little bit more, and I looked at all the school books I had on my bookshelf. And in front of me, the only thing that my hand wanted to take, my eyes wanted to turn away, but my hand kept on going to take it. And that was the Gideon Bible that was given to me in year 7. And I had never opened it, didn't even know it was really there. And I just pulled it off the shelf, and I just opened it towards the beginning, but just it seemed random, but the actual words that I needed to read were right there in the middle of the page, and it was, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And I didn't really read much anymore because I just went, what? How does this book know that that's exactly what I need? And it got me down on my knees and praying to this God who keeps on popping up. It was funny when I first heard the voice in my head, like God saying to me, "Trust in me." I was like, "What? Where did that come from?" I was like, and I was so scared that he will be coming in my room and hearing something, that I pulled out the shoes at the bottom of my cupboard and took a torch with me and started writing in the cupboard. And I wrote down his reply, the God's replies, as I was hearing, and it clearly, really clearly, like the angel was so clear in my mind what I could see. And they were the most beautiful, they were scriptural based stuff that I was hearing, but it was stuff I've never heard because I never had any church background. So it truly was a miracle, each of these. And that from then on, it was like just trying to find my purpose.
Thank you so much to Mel Baker for sharing the first part of her incredible story. This episode was part 1 of 4. The second part of Mel's journey will be available next week. Mel has written a book about her life. It's the first in a trilogy. It's called Sleeping Under the Bridge, and you can find more details in the show notes. And if you need support after listening to this episode, Lifeline is available on 13 11 14. And if you or someone you know has been impacted by sexual assault or domestic or family violence, call 1-800-RESPECT on 1-800-737-732 or visit 1800respect.org.au. Both of these resources are also available in the show notes. I'm Georgia, and thank you for listening to this episode of Finding Hope. I'd love to hear your feedback. You can send me an email, a review, or share it with your friends. Stories are always better when they're shared, and you never know what you can learn from someone else's journey. If you or someone you know has a story of hope to share and you'd like to be interviewed for this podcast, I would love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on the Finding Hope page at hopepodcasts.com.au. For now, I'll leave you with this verse. The very one that just might have saved Mel's life. Come to me, all who labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11, verse 28. Catch you next time.
This is a Hope 1032 production. Thanks for listening.